Well, hey guys, welcome to today's video. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to take you guys along with me today and just show you what I'm doing out here. We got a lot to do. I can't get it all done in a day. I never can. There's no way. But from all of our potting up we've got left to do to some irrigation we've got to do. This morning we're getting water running out here and we got 2 more places to irrigate, and just going to kind of show you guys what it looks like in a day out here in the nursery. So hadn't done this in a while, hadn't shown y'all this in a while, but looking forward to getting a lot of work done today. And you know, filming always makes that a little bit slower, but we're going to get done everything we can. So let's go have a look and see what needs to be done in the nursery today. I start the day pretty much every day with irrigation, and I manually come out and turn the valves on, and you know, I can set these on timers. I've done that before, but I really like to be hands-on in irrigation. I like to watch the water. It's just kind of therapeutic, and it's a really good time to just walk around the area and just really look at your plants. And you know, it's good to just know what's going on with your plants, how they're growing, or you know, do you see an area of plants that have died or that have pests or whatever the case may be. I just like to check on them, whether I'm watering with the sprinklers or if I'm coming along and doing something like hand watering plug trays or some other kind of really tender plant, whatever it is. I just think it's important to spend this time, and I enjoy it, and I do it every day that it doesn't rain. And you know, it's hot and dry here and it hadn't rained in a while, so it's just part of the day today. All right guys, we're going to spend a little time potting this morning too, and in addition to irrigation, of course. And this is a creeping phlox. Got a tray of creeping phlox here, and this is a phlox called Crimson Beauty, and today is August the 19th, and these will be ready to sell in March next year. Now that's a really great thing about these creeping phlox. I'm going to pot them in these small pots. This is like a 2-quart pot. It's a little smaller than a trade gallon, and several good things about that. Your potting soil goes a long way in these smaller pots. Be able to do this entire tray with one load of potting soil here. That's one benefit. A second benefit is between now and you know, our weather turning cold, which is only, you know, 9 or 10 weeks away, and growing season's done, and it'll be slowing down here in just 4, 5, 6 weeks. But these grow really fast. They'll fill out these pots really nicely just by the end of the growing season, and they even grow some over winter. And as they're beginning to emerge in spring, they'll put on a burst of growth and just explode in blooms. Now it's called Crimson Beauty. It's not really like that deep crimson red. It's more of like a pink, but they're a spectacular plant, and I'll sell these less than my typical perennial price just by a little bit, and I can sell a ton of these things. So creeping phlox is a great plant to have, so let's get to potting them. Now some of these are a little nicer looking than others. That's just kind of a really small plug there, but it's absolutely fine. You know, I have a high success rate with these. You know, usually 80–90+% of these, even potted this time of year, late in the season like this, they overwinter great, they root great, they just do really well. So that was kind of an example of a really small one. Here's one just that's got a little bit more growth on it. You just have to know that these are 72 count plugs. These are not going to be huge or real bushy anyway, but that's a really nice looking 72 count plug there. So all a 72 count is just a minimal starter plant. You know, you can't expect too much from a small plug of that size. There's just not enough of it there to really wow you with what it is. But the point is to buy these things for, you know, $1 or $1.20 or whatever, and then just to grow them out in a pretty reasonable amount of time. So, you know, this is not like some kind of quick flip project. So, you know, you can expect on a 72 count plug, totally dependent on the plant, to run you anywhere between 90 cents or so for a plug, up to, you know, $2 or $3, just depending on, again, what the plant is. You know, there are some little 72 counts like hellebores, for example, Lenten rose, whatever you want to call them. And those things $3–4 a piece for small plugs, you know, if you can even find them. So I don't do a whole lot of stuff like that. I like to stick to these fast growing, easy, cheap perennials. Mostly. It's not all I do, but it's most of what I do as far as perennials are concerned. So I want them to be predictable and fast. And also, I don't want it to kill me if a bunch of them die. You know, if this whole tray dies, you know, I'm out like $65. Well, I don't want to be out $65, and the whole tray is not going to die. But, you know, there's some things, you buy a whole tray of them that cost $400 for the tray, and if they all die, you're out $400, and it's just a harder way to make money if you ask me. So I like to do these smaller plants, smaller pots, faster turnaround, given we have to overwinter these, and I get that, which doesn't require anything. I just leave them sitting out in the weather. You know, people have a hard time understanding that, it seems like. There are plants I cover up, and sometimes I do cover these up, but it's not necessary. You know, get perennials that are hardy in your zone, whatever kind of plants that are hardy in your zone, or even a zone lower than yours, and have them well rooted by winter. Just leave them sitting out in the elements. Let them get buried in snow. Let them freeze. Let them stick to the ground, freeze to the ground. You know, let them flood. Let them do all that stuff. The main thing you want to make sure is you got good draining potting soil, because you don't want to leave these sitting in water where they're just sitting there in standing water. You know, you don't want to see water pooling in the top of your pots. You know, that can happen some when they freeze. You know, when this pot gets wet and then it freezes solid, then it rains again, you can get some water sitting on it for, you know, a couple of days or something, and that's fine, but you don't want water pooling in top of your pot. So probably covering these is probably the best way to do it, but you have a pretty good survival rate with perennials over winter without covering them at all. So, you know, if you go through weeks and weeks with no rain at all, you maybe have to just water them here or there. And, you know, I would just say as a general rule, the further north you live, maybe the more precautions you want to take. But again, it's not really about how cold it gets. It matters about the plant's hardiness, and if it's hardy in your area. These creeping phlox are hardy. Tough plants are hardy in most areas of the United States. So just a plant that you can't go wrong with. Plant I'm glad to grow, and I actually wish I had more varieties of this. I'd love to have at least 3, maybe 5 good varieties of creeping phlox. You know, it's just a good plant to sell early in the spring. So always looking for things that flush out. You'll know those very first weeks of spring, late March, early April, people love to buy them. So creeping phlox will get them moved over this way. Now on these Crimson Beauty creeping phlox, I like to leave them in here. Any creeping phlox, this is just the ones I'm doing today. I like to keep them in here in the shade house for a few days, just making sure they're acclimated so we don't have any issues with putting them directly out into the hot sun. So you just have to kind of make a few trips back and forth, and pretty soon you got your 72 where they need to be. And I had another variety of creeping phlox called Amazing Grace. It's just a white creeping phlox with a pink center in it. Another really nice phlox that people like to buy in early spring. All right, got about 135 creeping phlox potted up now. There's just a few casualties there in that second tray, but that's fine, no worries. We're just a hair after 11 o'clock, and I'm about to head in and eat lunch. It's hot as everything out here. Got a new to me project for this afternoon that I really don't want to do, but I have to do because of how dry it is out here. I've had very little rain in the last 2 months. And anyway, I'll catch up with y'all in just a little bit. I'm gonna run in here and grab some lunch and cool off for a while. Now at this point in the day, I had about an hour and a half setback because I had to rebuild my golf cart trailer hitch, and I needed to hook up the water tank here to do irrigation for our green giant trees that are our property line, our privacy screen we're growing out in our field. We've had just virtually, well, just not much rain here at all in the last 2 months, and trying to keep these things from dying. So big project today is to get the tank hooked up, filled up with water, and get some irrigation going. All right, I've got the tank filled to here, 275 gallon tank, probably a little more than a third full. So I'm gonna say, you know, around 125 gallons of water. That's a pretty good load for a golf cart. So we're gonna find us a hose, a short hose if I can find one, hook it right here, and then it'll just gravity drain right out the back and we can get to watering some trees. All right, folks, here's the setup. I don't usually come back here to do any video stuff, just not any nursery stuff going on back here, but there's our house way up there and our nursery's over there. And this is kind of our back 6 acres back here. And here's my green giant trees right here. I just be careful how I do this because right there is my neighbor's house, like really close. So this is our green giant fence. We've had to replace some of these back here because they're completely neglected. We don't bring water back here, but here's our watering setup. So there's our water tank and our hose comes back here. And I just water a few at a time and just give them a few seconds of water and go back and give them a few more seconds of water. And I'm not really trying to irrigate these trees so they'll grow. I'm trying to keep them from dying. So you can see how brown the grass is here. We hadn't cut it in weeks. You move up here, you see this little green patch right here. The neighbors had a broken water pipe and it seeped for probably a week, which good for us, I guess, bad for them, but you get the idea. You see the trees going right on up. And there's about 130 of them up here, all the way down that fence and back all the way up there towards the road. So probably 75 to 100 of them, something like that, will have to be watered out here in the field with this tank. So I'm just gonna get busy doing it and hopefully this won't be too big of a problem today. I will say that this is not a job I'm enjoying doing at all, but I do get to do a lot of things that I enjoy doing in my nursery, and sometimes you just have to embrace the stuff you don't want to do as well, and it's just part of it. But I'm just trying to put a little bit of water on each one of these trees, and all I'm trying to do is keep these things alive. I just don't want them to die, and whatever the number is that need to be watered out here, I'm going to just put probably half a gallon of water or so on each one and move on. But the water comes out of this hose slow. It's a slow process. It takes a while to get this done, but I'm thankful to be able to have a tank and at least have some way to get water to do this at all. Well, guys, I don't think there are words in the English language to tell you how glad I am to be done with that part. Now I can move on to doing the rest of these from here out to the road, probably, I don't know, 40 trees or something. I can do the rest of these with the water hose. And how many of y'all call this a hose pipe? That's what I called this growing up, a hose pipe. Do the rest of them with the hose pipe, the water hose, from here on up to the road. You know, these right through here are about the prettiest ones I have. This one's taller than me. It's about 6.5 feet tall. I don't know why these right through here look so much better than all the other ones. Who knows? It's just soil is all it is. Anyway, I'm just going through here and watering all of them just a little, about 8 or 10 at a time, and then I just go back down them and do them again. This ground is very dry and it's very hard, and if you just stand here and just water it, it all just runs off. So you just do a little and really let it get the top of the ground wet. Well, just about now we had problems with our audio, so just to wrap this part of the day up, had a lot of trees to water, had a lot of watering to do today in general, way more than normal, but really because of just the arborvitae situation. And we got to do everything we can to keep these things alive without it taking over our lives completely. So before we get ready to call it a day, we're going to do one more thing, and we're going to go over here and see if we can get a few sedum stems started for propagation. All right, just to show you what one of these looks like, this is in a little 3.5-inch cup or pot, and you can see it's a single stem, but there's a little tiny stem starting to grow right there, if you can see that. Now that's what these do. This has a rhizome, and which is kind of like an underground body of a plant, and more stems will come from there, and that's what these sedum do. So we're going to take this and just cut it off way down low. I mean, I'm leaving about 2 inches of this thing standing there. So That's what I'm going to leave. Not a whole lot left, but we don't need it, because what we're going to do is we're going to take this one, pot it up in a trade gallon pot, and this will be ready for spring sales next year. Again, it's mid-August right now. We're going to leave this alone this year. We'll just put it back out here under the sprinklers where it's been all summer. And pot it or not, we need to pot it up, yes. But next spring, it'll look great, and it'll have 4, 5, 6 really nice thick stems that come up from underneath. So we're done with this part of it. So all we're going to do is take this part that we cut. Look, I'm going to cut the top of this out. We don't need that because that's about to bloom, and just trying to propagate that, that's not really going to work very well. So now you're left with this. And all I'm going to do with this, I'm going to cut it in half. Now, that's just because that will make about the size cutting that I like to use. But you could probably get 3 or 4 cuttings out of this if you just wanted to make them real small, or if you were limited on material. If you only had a couple of these, stems like this, and you want to get all that you could out of it, then just cut them smaller. Chop, 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 and they'll work just fine. I just find them a little bit easier to work with if you've got a little bit, a few more inches on the stem. So I just roughly cut that in half. You can see that. Pretty simple. And I just take all these leaves on the bottom, every one of them, and just strip them off. And you're left with something about like that. You can leave 2 leaves, 3 leaves, 4 leaves, 5 leaves. It doesn't matter. You just need some bare stem down on the bottom to stick in your new pots where you're going to root these. And then the other stem that we had, right here, same thing. Just grab it near the top and just kind of rip all those leaves off of there, and you're left with something about like that. Yep, those cuttings look quite a bit different, but it doesn't make any difference. These are both going to root really, really well. So let's get them stuck. Now I'm making my cuttings so I can stick them all at once, but check this one out. It's got several stems already. And even though they're skinny, all these stems are skinny, and I don't need them, so I'm not going to take them all. But you could take all these little small stems and cut them up as well. So just from this little piece in my hand, you could probably get, 6 to 10 cuttings out of this little piece alone. So you can use every little bit of it, and all of it will root. So I'm just showing this to show you that these things can multiply really, really, really fast. So kind of an exponential multiplication. So pretty cool on the sedum. All right, guys, now I just took these little 3.5-inch pots, filled them up with my potting soil, soaked them, and poked a little hole in each one of them so the cutting can stick down in there. So my cuttings look something like this. They vary a little, but on average, there's one of my cuttings, there's one of my cuttings. Sometimes it's beneficial to make these as uniform as possible, just so your plants root, grow, and kind of are ready to go at the same rate. But I've got some skinny ones in here as well. So let's just compare this one. I just showed it to you to this one, little tiny skinny stem. It's no problem. It will root just fine. So you just take them and stick them down in the hole, just so the leaves are above the soil line. You don't want to sit the leaves right down on top of the soil. And you can propagate these sedums by their leaves alone. I made a video about that last year. But that being said, you can do them like this a whole lot faster. And if you've got a nice big one, you can dig it up and just chop it in half like you can a hosta, and that is even faster. So multiple ways to do these sedums. And once you make your cuttings, just stick them down in your pots. This happens to be an 18 count tray, so I'll get a lot of them in here, and I'm going to do another tray like this before I call it a day. But y'all get the idea, and I'll give you a quick little glance here of the tray kind of done completely, and that's what it looks like. So all in all, that's pretty doggone easy. All right, guys, I'm going to clean up this mess. I'm going to water in those cuttings that I just put out there. They're just sitting out with all my other plants in the shade, and they'll just sit there, and 100% of them will root, or at least 98% of them will, with no problem. It's getting late. It's been a long, hot day, but it's been a good day. So I appreciate y'all coming along with me today. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all on the next one.